Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Veterinary Business Podcast, where passion meets purpose and where we uncover what it really takes to build a thriving, financially sustainable veterinary practice. I'm your host, Dan Adisha, and I'm so glad you're here. Let's face it, most veterinary professionals didn't enter this field for the numbers. But what happens when your clinic financial reality doesn't reflect all the hard work you're putting in? Revenue might look strong on paper, but somehow there's never enough left over to truly grow, reward your team, or breathe easier. So that's exactly what today's conversation is all about. Breaking down the myths around money and discovering why profit isn't a dirty word. Joining us is Michelle Musacchio, CPA, MT, principal and founder of Fit Money CPA. With a deep background in public accounting, taxation, and business consulting, Michelle helps veterinary practice owners turn financial confusion into clarity. Her mission is simple yet powerful: to help you understand where your money is really going, uncover those invisible expenses, and build a practice that's as profitable as it's purposeful. In this episode, profit isn't a dirty word. Rethinking money in veterinary practice, Michelle will walk us through the biggest financial blind spots in veterinary medicine and share actionable ways to strengthen cash flow and long-term stability. And here's a special gift for our listeners. You can book a complimentary practice growth strategy session with Lila, a veteran in veterinary marketing with decades of experience. In this one-on-one session, you'll receive a detailed analysis of your practice's online presence and a personalized 6-month plan to help you grow, connect, and stand out in your community. It's our way of supporting you and the incredible work you do every single day. Visit www.veterinarybusиnessinstitute.com/MSM and book the meeting at a convenient time for you. Michelle, it's such a pleasure to have you here. Welcome to the show. So, Michelle, a little context for our listeners here. Many of the 2025 veterinary benchmarks show an interesting pattern. Clinic revenue is slightly up, but actual visits are down. So even though the numbers look good on paper, profit might tell a different story. Can you please explain the difference and why focusing on profit is essential for long-term success?
So that is a great question. And I get it a lot. I have all this money coming in and you're telling me my profit is X, but I can't pay taxes on that because that's not what's in my bank account. So what that basically comes down to is cash flow. So we always want to be looking at our profit and loss statement, which by its name provides us whether we're showing a profit or showing a loss. And many times that profit is going to be larger than what you have in your bank account. And the reason for that is you may have loans that you're paying, equipment loans, building loans, whatever, that the cash is going towards those payments. We get to deduct the interest, but we don't get to deduct the principal because we take care of that through depreciation. So that's where it gets really confusing about profit versus revenue.
Right. So when you're auditing a clinic's books, what's the first tell that profit is being masked by revenue growth?
Well, we want to clarify something. We don't technically audit.
Okay.
There's an accounting phrases that we kind of steer away from. There's a compilation,
Okay.
there's a review, and there's an audit.
Okay.
So I understand the way you're using audit. It's how do we come in, take a look at the books, and determine
Review?
what the leaks are. And that's exactly what we do. We look at the profit and loss statement, and we'll get more in detail on some of these other examples that we're going to do. But it's really a detailed look into your financials. Um, you know, some people say it's a proctology exam, but it it's that in depth. So that we know where you're going and what you want to do.
And what's that first tell you can figure out, by having this look at the books that profit is being masked, by revenue growth.
So, and again, we'll get more in depth in this in some of our later examples, but the number one thing that we see is inventory management. And you can have expired medications.
Mm-hmm.
You can be ordering too much of one medication just because you don't have a good system for tracking that inventory.
Mm-hmm.
So that is really the number one thing that we see.
Absolutely. So segueing onto my next question, that's a perfect setup because, as you mentioned, industry reports this year are showing a surge in what analysts call quiet leaks, right? Things like merchant fees, inventory creep, and staff overtime. In fact, 2025 practice data revealed that supply and labor costs are up by 6 to 8%, even as overall visits are declining. So those small percentage shifts can quietly erase tens of thousands of dollars in annual profit. Now, you spoke about one, so let's get into it. What are some of the most common invisible expenses that quietly drain cash flow in veterinary clinics, and how can owners identify them?
Absolutely. And those invisible expenses are the sneaky ones. And those are the slow leaks that we don't really notice. And it's like that pipe that's underneath the house that has a leak that we don't know about until we get that water bill. And that erodes the profitability that's in the practice.
Hmm.
And some of the biggest ones we just mentioned, inventory waste. Here's another one.
Yeah.
Bet you wouldn't think about it.
Yeah.
Unused software subscriptions. 10 years ago, oh my gosh, that looks like a great software. I'm going to use it. Well, you forget about it and you still pay for it. And team overtime inefficiencies. Do we really need to be paying overtime? Do they need to be on overtime? So, again, it's monitoring that. And another one is the overpayment of merchant service fees, which is your credit cards, or bank fees. And obviously, with the bank fees, you can go in and talk to your banker if you have a good relationship with them and see what they can do. And I would recommend looking at those merchant service fees at a minimum once a year, if not more. So, in most clinics, it's not that the expenses are too high; it's that they're unseen. And again, going back to that software subscription, you're paying $300 a month, just automatically. It's on your credit card. It just goes through. You're not even paying attention. Or maybe that $1,500 of expired meds sitting, back in the very back of your shelf in your inventory. And it sounds really, really small when you say $300 or $1,500. It might be immaterial, but annualize those, multiply it by 12 months, that could be 20,000 plus. And that's just walking out your back door. You're not even getting to say goodbye to it. And the fix is that awareness, becoming aware of it. And we start by running a CAT scan. And that is, the CAT stands for cash accumulating techniques. And, we dig into the recurring transactions. This is what you were talking about a little while ago. But we dig into those transactions. We look at the vendor listings. We look at the inventories. We look at the invoices for the inventory versus what's in the system, if we're using a system at all. And once the owner actually sees these leaks, we can plug them. And then it becomes more of awareness than just spending money.
Now, you spoke about a system, checking the inventory versus a system. Is there a
Mhm.
particular reporting or dashboard that you installed so the owners can't miss these leaks the next month?
So I developed what is called the cats and dogs system, and it's cash accumulating techniques and driven outcome gains. And we have an app. We're actually in the process of finalizing that app, and it's the Profit Play. It's the Vet Profit Play app, and it's designed to bring all of this information into one spot, so you can look on your phone and say, hey, what's my inventory today, or what's my revenue today, and it's a way to tell stories. And we do have, if anybody is interested, we do have the Cats and Dogs book that I also wrote. So a lot of good information in there on the whole
Michelle,
system in and of itself.
can you just let the people know the name of the book as well as like
Sure,
where they can find it because they're
absolutely,
listening.
absolutely. It's Elevate the Next Level Training, the Cats and Dogs System, and you can find it on my web. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on my website. Website's www.fitmoneycpa.com. So lots of good
And
information in there, which is basically what we're going through today.
exactly. With that being said, Michelle, so how do you guide practice owners in understanding where their money is really going and what strategies would, help them regain that financial clarity?
So, you had mentioned earlier that veterinarians don't go to school to get a finance degree. They don't go to school to get an accounting degree either. And you don't need one. And again, the framework that I've developed is what brings clarity to the practice, because we're using those numbers to tell a story. And the cats, again, the cash accumulating techniques track the habits that build the financial strength, and the dogs focus on the measurable goals like the profit percentage and the payroll rate scorecard. And I have one client that I'm working with right now that she is currently renting the facility in which her practice is. And the plan is that by 29, we have the building at least almost finished. So we have determined these basically buckets that we want to save money into, and we're just identifying it, and then we have identified what a 2 month, I think it's actually a 3 month safety net for operating expenses. And then we're going to sweep everything else over to her savings accounts. So, again, we're mapping that dollar flow through the practice. We're going from deposits to deductions to the savings that we want. And we're assigning each category a purpose. We've got a profit, we've got a pay, or we've got a growth. And once these owners see this money in motion, again, we're telling this story, and it's like turning that light on in a dark room. And the chaos starts disappearing, and the strategies start taking over.
Okay. Okay. I really like that. The way you're explaining things, it's when it comes to finances, especially with the numbers, it can get overwhelming, right? Perhaps that's the main
Absolutely.
reason that like all of these things get hidden out of sight, out of mind. But when we are communicating that in a way where a story is being told, right? Uh, it becomes more easy to grasp. Like,
Mhm.
for example, these three buckets: profit, payment, and then growth. Can you
Mhm.
actually elaborate a little bit more on that? How does that tell the story at a
Well,
glance?
oh, absolutely. And thank you for asking. And I do want to back up because, veterinarians, you guys are absolutely amazing at what you do. And this is one of the reasons that I have gotten into this is because I want the veterinarians to concentrate on my kitties. And I want to do the strategies for them within their practices while they're running the practice. And back to your question, if we have those dollars allocated for the expenses, we don't really like budgets because the word seems so confining. But again, we've got to put together something so that we know, okay, in the month of November, we're going to be able to spend X amount on payroll. And if we hit that X amount, then we're not going to have overtime. We're not going to have this. We've got to have some guidelines. So that's putting the rails on. And again, I don't like to call it a budget, but it's the most common thing people understand. So, again, that's the pay. And then the profit, again, the how we determine that profit is it's the revenue that we bring in, less all those expenses, give us that profit. So if we have planned for that profit, again, we can make more strategic decisions. We can determine if, maybe we want to include an ultrasound in our practice. Maybe we want to get a more advanced x-ray machine, do some more imaging. So again, if we're planning that profit, we can actually do that strategy. And then, of course, the growth, that's just, we've got everything streamlined. We've got everything going. Because part of the whole process, and again, it's not just numbers that we're looking at, but part of that whole process are what systems do you have in place? And with those systems, then we can grow because we're getting more efficiencies.
What do you mean by the systems in place? Is it possible for you to
Whatever.
clarify?
How does your front desk check out a client? How do your vet techs bring in a client for their appointment? It's whatever within your practice, you know what you're doing, but you may not have written it down on a sheet of paper, so that the goal is that if somebody comes walking in off the street and you're going to hire them with no previous knowledge, that they can take that system that you have written down and perform it perfectly.
Right. So you're talking about sort of mapping out all the systems and processes in place.
Correct.
You know, okay. So we have a
Correct.
visual look at all these little details that perhaps are very second nature to us, but they can be improved on and should be, right?
Exactly. We all know it up here. And that's part of every business owner's problem. And
Dilemma.
I'm including me in this, but we keep our information up here and then get mad because somebody's not doing what we think they should do, but we've never told them how to do it. So, again, it's just getting it from here down on paper.
Right, right. Um, so, Michelle, recently we've seen corporate consolidations accelerating, right? While independent clinics are struggling to maintain 10 to 15 margins. Yet we're also seeing standout practices buck the trend by tightening operations and boosting pricing discipline. I'd love to hear a real
Mhm.
world story of a clinic, that pulled this off. Can you share an example of a veterinary practice you worked with that significantly improved profitability by rethinking their financial approach?
Sure, absolutely. And just from my perspective, I do not like corporate practices. I the our ER here, one of our ERs is already corporate. The other ER is thinking about selling out to corporate, and that just crushes my heart because I think if you go corporate, your your sole purpose is the bottom line, and that's not. I know that's not what veterinarians feel and think. So, in that vein, again, that's why I want to work with veterinarians that own their practice, independent doctors, so that we can help them compete against those corporate entities. And I do have a three doc small animal clinic. And, the same words kept coming out of their mouth. Man, I'm so incredibly busy. My day's just packed with appointments, but I'm broke. And, the revenue was strong, over 2 million, but they couldn't understand why they didn't have enough left over for themselves. So what we did, again, we did that CAT scan. We discovered probably around $85,000, $90,000 worth of those money leaks and, expired inventory, overstaffed slow times. So as an example, perfect example, so this practice is out of town, so it's not like I could walk into it. But when I was walking into one of my personal vet's practices, they had like 3 people there and nobody, no clients. So they didn't need 3 people at that slow time. So that's, again, things that we're looking at. Do you have, going back to that subscription, do you have duplicate service subscriptions or do you have subscriptions that you're not using? So after implementing the cats and dogs system, we began tracking our cash flow weekly, and we were tying bonuses to profit goals instead of production. Because if you think about it, and I know this is what we do, especially in the ER world, that we want our production to go up, 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 up. And the more production you have, the more you're going to be bonused out. Well, how's that really working out with profit? So we're taking a step back and comparing it to profit as opposed to production. So within 9 months, these folks increased their profit by 27%. And the owners stopped dipping into their personal savings to make payroll. And the biggest win wasn't just the money, it was the confidence that it gave the owners. It's, oh my gosh, for the last 10 years, it's been a struggle. But now I feel confident, I feel in control, and my business is gonna do nothing but exceed.
Michelle, I I would really appreciate a bit of a clarification with how the bonuses are getting tied to the profit goals and which profit goals should they get tied to, just for our practice owners listening, like just to start off.
That's an excellent question. And again, that's going to be different for each practice because, maybe one practice wants to increase dental. So what we would do is we would formulate a plan that maybe the front desk folks are saying, oh my gosh, it looks like you haven't had a dental cleaning in a while. Let's go ahead and get Fluffy scheduled for that. Does next week work? And then, again, that profit, we're hoping that profit is going to go up based on just focusing on that one thing that we want to do.
How do you get that clarity to get, to do that one thing you want to do?
Part of it is your why.
Okay.
Why are you in veterinary medicine? What excites you about the industry? So an example. He's a friend of mine, but he's also my internist, my veterinarian internist, and he takes care of my 2 girls who unfortunately have small cell lymphoma. But instead of just, yep, this is what they have, here's the protocol, he takes a personal interest in it. He is excited about helping pets and helping those animals. First of all, I can't say enough good things about him. Just love him to death. But he is going to dig into whatever diagnostic he comes up with and make sure we're on the right protocol so that the pet can live the most comfortable and longest life that they possibly can.
The reason why I asked you that question is because when we started on this question itself, you mentioned when you go corporate, your sole focus
Mhm.
becomes that bottom line, right? So I was just wondering how can we, remember the
Mhm.
reasons why we've gotten into this business, right?
Right.
Um,
And again, it's getting back to that passion, and just what excites you about veterinary medicine.
right. And then, of course, as you mentioned, once you do have a really good CAT scan and go with and go with your protocols, it finances can become a strength. You don't
Mhm.
need to feel overwhelmed by it. It can be your key to confidence, right? So fantastic. Thank you very much for that very enlightening approach to those things. And
Absolutely. As you said, it's that understanding. It's just like anything else. If you don't know what's going on, you're scared of it and you're intimidated by it. Like I couldn't walk into a veterinarian practice and diagnose any patients. But the same thing, vice versa. They can't walk into my job and be able to do that tax planning strategy or figure out where the leaks are. So we all have our strengths.
yes, we all have our strengths, and to play into them is to create the best we can be.
Exactly. Exactly.
Fantastic. Uh, Now, Michelle, for veterinarians or practice owners listening in today, what's one actionable step they can take right now to start improving their practice's profit? And how can your services support them in that journey?
Absolutely. So the one major KPI, key performance index that I recommend is your net profit margin. Can you find it? Do you know where it is? You should know it within 30 seconds. And just to define what net profit margin is, it's revenue. Let's see, it's gross income. Let's back up a second. It's net profit divided by your revenue multiplied by 100 to get the percentage. And as you have mentioned a couple of times, what we're expecting in a small animal practice is between 10 and 15% net profit margin. And again, that's going to be that bottom line, our net profit divided by our top line, the revenue. And if you know what it is, fantastic. If you don't know what it is, let's figure out where we can go and find out about it. And what I'd like you to do is right after this live, what I'd like you guys to do, find that and then make a goal to increase it by 1% in November. So you've got a 10% profit margin. Let's see if we can make it 11. And again, part of that's going to be looking at expenses and getting rid of what we don't need. And to your next part of that question, how we can support, we've really talked a lot about the cats and dogs system, and I believe 1,000% in it, or I would not have created it. But another thing that we offer is that support for your accounting work. A lot of people think, oh, it's just, I can put it in QuickBooks, I'll get it, it'll be fine. Well, part of the problem is, for one, we're not using the right chart of accounts. And what we make sure is that all of our veterinarians are using the AHA chart of accounts. And the reason we do that is because then we can get those industry comparisons. And again, we're able to look at them in what should make sense in your brain, as opposed to just this. Let's just make up this chart of accountants and use whatever QuickBooks tells us to use. So, again, we've got the cats and dogs, and we've got that support for actually doing your accounting work.
Now, you mentioned over there very briefly the importance of being on the same page and having a standardized accounting system to the AHA accounting system, perhaps. Um, why is that so important? Is it to, check out the benchmark, see if the problem it might not be you, maybe the whole market might be having a little dip at that moment. Is it that, or are there more reasons to it?
That's the primary reason. Because again, if let's remember back in school when we were always competing against each other. And, what kind of grade did you get on this test? Well, it's a similar thing. It's how successful is my business versus your business. And instead of we're going against the whole, not even against, we're going with that whole group so that we can see where we stand. And to your point, if it's an industry issue, that makes us feel a little bit better. But just because it's an industry average issue, we don't want to be average. We want to be above average. And again, we need to know what those markers are just so we can compare against them.
Right. Michelle, we've approached almost the end of our session here. Uh, what is one key takeaway our audience can have if they were to listen in on this session? What's your one major key takeaway for our audience tonight?
Well, again, we recommended finding out what your net profit margin is. And, I think that's, once you know that number, we can go from there. Obviously, you can reach out to us. We will help you do the CAT scan. We'll help you go through all of this and build that solid foundation so that you can grow.
Right. So thank you very much, Michelle, for bringing such clarity and compassion to a topic that too often feels intimidating. You've reminded us that profit isn't about greed, it's about freedom, right?
Mhm.
It's about sustainability and protecting the heart of the practice. To our incredible listeners, thank you very much for tuning in. Your commitment to your teams, your clients, and your patience is what keeps this profession thriving. Remember, understanding your numbers isn't just good business, it's an act of leadership. If today's episode inspired you to look at your practice's finances differently, connect with Michelle and her team at Fit Money CPA. They specialize in helping veterinary business uncover hidden expenses, strengthen cash flow, and achieve the profitability they've been striving for. We'd also love to hear your thoughts, share your biggest takeaway from this episode, and you might be featured in an upcoming discussion. With that being said, we would really appreciate if you leave a review wherever you're listening to this podcast from. So, from all of us at the Veterinary Business Podcast, thank you for showing up, for your patience, your people, and your purpose. Keep leading with clarity, courage, and confidence. And remember, profit isn't a dirty word when it's built on purpose.